the Malian armed forces carried out an operation in the garrison town of Kati. They intercepted a Sotrama vehicle. Now, for those who don't know, Sotrama, these are the mini buses, the taxis that move people across the cities in Mali. All right. So they are very common, they are ordinary transport, very affordable. So, what was not ordinary about what the authorities discovered on board for this particular Sotrama vehicle today? According to the information coming out of Mali, 16 individuals were intercepted and arrested. Ladies and gentlemen, 16. So if you want to see the videos of the arrest and some of the image, you should go to our Telegram channel. We have it right there. So now, the Malian authorities have been very deliberate in how they handle this matter. Okay, so the Sotrama vehicle itself, has been requisitioned and it has been seized as part of the investigation. And as of now, interrogations and investigation are still ongoing to establish the full circumstances and determines who bears responsibility for this type of situation. Because when you capture individuals, you know, trying to infiltrate Kati, it only means one thing. The last time we have individuals infiltrating Kati was when we lost the esteemed defense minister of Mali, General Sadio Kamara. So it raised a lot of questions. Is the FLA and JNIM coalition in collaboration with France? Are they trying to launch another infiltration operation in Mali? Because when you capture 16 people in a commercial transport vehicle, it means that something is underway. So kudos and big respect to the Malian intelligence agency. Now, this was an intelligence-led operation, and the fact that they stopped a specific vehicle, right, on a specific day. There are multiple vehicles commuting this Kati environs in Mali. But the fact that the Malian armed forces stopped this particular Sotrama vehicle, and this is a vehicle that is not even supposed to be looked at in a very suspicious manner because it's very, very common. Now, to have been able to stop that particular vehicle, ladies and gentlemen, that tells you everything that you exactly need to know. The Malian intelligence, they're working like the clock. They're working right now and they're on top of every situation. Now, they know who they were looking for. So they've arrested 16 people. So investigation continues. Now, when we say investigation continues, investigation does not mean maybe they want to ascertain if they are terrorists or not. Investigation sometimes mean that they might be trying to look for more of their accomplices. Are you trying to launch another attack? So every country has their own modus of operation when it comes to investigating suspects. But ladies and gentlemen, what I find particularly interesting, ladies and gentlemen, is that Kati is a major military garrison town and it houses the key Malian armed forces military installation, some drone installation, some satellite installation, and it's about 15 kilometers from Bamako. So for suspected terrorists to be moving through Kati on a Sotrama vehicle, it tells you several things. Number one, either they are attempting to infiltrate a sensitive military zone, right? Or they were using Kati, right, as a transit corridor and luck ran out of them. Either way, the Malian armed forces have been able to demonstrate that their intelligence apparatus is working like a clockwork. Now, they intercepted this individual before whatever the planning could materialize. So kudos to the Malian armed forces. You see, for every interception like this, you've just been able to save civilian lives. You've just been able to save the life of some very, very special people in Mali. And long live the revolution. Now, we'll be following the story as the investigation unfolds. So this is not going to end here, right? But for now, right, 16 intercepted vehicles have been seized and investigation is active. Now, in the town of Mopti, the Malian armed forces and the Russian African Corps, they have taken their military operation to a whole nother level. A lot of terrorists have been eliminated, they've been captured, and some of the things that they've recovered from this captured combatants, it is really, really something that meets the eyes. The Starlink satellites, multiple have been captured in Mopti, not just the weapons that the terrorists are using. I'm talking about Starlink satellite receivers. They have been captured. Satellite phones and a lot of rocket launchers, a lot of different type of arms, rifles have been captured from this element. Now, this shows you the operational capability of the Malian armed forces. And, we are seeing a lot of video. The first video we dropped on our Telegram channel today, you can see the shock wave when that bomb actually landed. It was something for the magazine. Like, even Ovation is learning. Like, when they dropped that bomb, I've been studying Mali's situation for quite a while, and the type of bomb they dropped today, I have not seen that bomb in a long time. Like, you could actually see the shockwave that anything within that perimeter, within the blast radius, not even the blast radius, that was something different, and there was a lot of terrorists there. That was a major terrorist base in Mopti, and the Malian armed forces just destroyed the base. Now, the key thing to concentrate on about this information is this. Some days ago, before the Malian armed forces launched this operation, Western intelligence, they were shouting and they were making a lot of noise that the Malian armed forces is about to attack civilians. So the question we should be asking is the Western media, are they working hand in hand with these people? Did they send out a call? Did they call that preemptive move? I think it's preemptive from both sides. The Malian armed forces airstrike was preemptive. The Western media call out was preemptive, because I feel like before they made that call, there was no military striking Mopti. But immediately they made that call, the Malian armed forces moved in. So what I want to bring out at this point is, are they aware? It is not a question of if they are aware again at this point. Because some of the times, when there are attacks going on in Mali, the first place you are going to see those attacks is on Western media. Are they complicit? Are they working hand in hand with these people? I cannot independently verify this right now, but from the statistics and the facts that have been documented over time, we can argue that they are complicit in this situation. But I'm not saying, but we can argue. I stand to be corrected. Now, let's go to the second critical detail of what's just happened in Mali. And this is a very, very beautiful situation. You see, the Russian African Corps, they have been working with the Malian armed forces non-stop in the north of Mali. I think the morale within the Malian armed forces is on a whole nother level right now. I think the political support for the Malian military to go all out against this element is at an all-time high. And I think they are living up to that hype. You see, a lot of soldiers have paid the ultimate price. But the fact that Mali is going about their business the right way, methodically, gradually, systematically, decapitating the terrorist infrastructure, their field hospital. Yesterday, a field hospital for terrorists was hit in the border town of Tizawantin, very close to Algeria. Today, another field hospital for terrorists. You could actually see the drip stand. You can see kidney dish. You can see a lot of medical, capabilities right there. Rashford. You can see a lot of medical capabilities right there. And the Malian armed forces hit this particular field hospital. The FLE were there, and it was Allahu Akbar. There's a way they call this their own Allahu Akbar. So they were telling us, like, I think, when people say Allahu Akbar like that, they're trying to tell you like this heat is just very, very is unlike anything they are normally used to experiencing. So I mean, the Malian armed forces is gradually doing what they have to do. Don't forget that some days ago, they just hit some illegal mining sites where a lot of artisanal miners had to flee Mali you know. So Mali is doing what we expect them to do: cut out the lifeline, cut out the money from every side. Now, Mali has been able to put the FLA and JNIM coalition on a choke hold. So what we are looking at right now is, I think the JNIM has been forced to come out of their shell and try to launch a counter-offensive. But the preemption of the Malian armed forces is giving us a statistic on the ground that a lot of JNIM are being pursued right in their enclaves as we speak. So the initiative and the calculus is not being dictated by the terror group right now. It's being dictated by the Malian armed forces. Now, the second information of today, and this is where things get very, very interesting. In the latest operation by the Russian African Corps in northern Mali with the Malian armed forces, multiple Starlink satellites, all right, internet terminals were captured with FLA elements, those that were neutralized, and some that surrendered. Now, the Azawad Liberation Front, for those that have been following the conflict, these are the Tuareg separatists turned terrorists after they affiliated themselves with the Jamatul Nusrat Islam wa Muslimin, or whatever they call themselves, right? So they have been operating in the north, and they have been given the central, authorities, which are the Malian armed forces and the Malian authorities and the Russian ally, a significant, problem, because of the fact that even though the Malian armed forces have a significant conventional capacity and superiority, the asymmetry, together with the support of Western intelligence, have really, really proved to yield some sort of abrasion sometimes. But here is what I want you to pay attention to. The capture of Starlink terminals with this group is not a small detail. A lot of people look at it when we point out, those days when I still used to make videos and I circle the Starlink satellite. A lot of people look at it like maybe it's ordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, it's actually one of the most revealing pieces of evidence about who is actually enabling, what, is going on in the Sahel. Apart from France, there is another body that is seriously complicit and enabling the FLA and the JNI. And I want to take a few minutes to walk you through why we think there are certain people, because understanding this changes how you view the entire conflict in the Sahel and possibly maybe the conflict in Nigeria, because we're going to use Nigeria as a critical, point of reference while we are analyzing this. But here's what I want you to pay attention to, right? When you capture a Starlink, all right, you have not just captured any communication link. You have captured something significant, because it means a lot of things. Every Starlink you capture, it means a lot to the next Starlink. It means a lot to the identity of the people that are carrying out this crime. Either somebody else is helping, or the guys that you've captured or somebody around them have just helped them to make them operational. Now, let's go into how the Starlink tracking works, because this will help you understand a lot of things about this. So let me explain something, ladies and gentlemen. How does Starlink actually work? And how is it possible for Western intelligence and, frankly, anyone that has the right access to know exactly what is happening with these terminals and what is going on, what they are using it for? So, first, to use a Starlink terminal, you need a subscription. Now, that is simple, right? So, this is not a device you just buy from the market and turn on anonymously. You cannot, Starlink does not operate like that. You must register an account. Okay? Now, for you to register an account, there's a lot of verification procedure that you must go through. Now, that account requires payment. Like, I'm talking about a monthly subscription fee that you pay with a credit card or a debit card. All right? Either, since it's, Starlink, MasterCard, Verve, Visa phone, and all of that connected to the Western. Most of the time, this payment system are connected to the Western SWIFT system. Are you communicating with me? Now, the payment method is tied to your identity. So immediately there is a financial trail. We're trying to bring everything out to you. So to use satellite terminal, all right, all those things needs to be put in place. In fact, your facial recognition is part of this whole conversation. Okay. So every Starlink terminal has what is called a Starlink identifier. Now, this is a unique code that is tied to every specific Starlink hardware. Now, it is baked into the dish of the Starlink satellite, that flat rectangular dish. It is baked into it. Now, you cannot change it. Yes, you cannot change it. And you cannot erase it. So that identifier is registered to an account. And that account is registered to a person at a service address. All right. So this is crucial. And you want to roam. Yeah, you can roam about with it. But when you take the Starlink outside your home country, Starlink now requires passport verification and face scan. All right. So that policy was rolled out in 2025 and it was strengthened in 2026. It became even tougher, but the terrorists are still using it in 2026. And they are moving from the Algerian airspace to the Malian airspace. So that means multiple verification. If they're in Algeria, verification. If they're in Mali, verification. So now, and the policy is now very, very strict. So if a terminal is registered in one country and it suddenly appears in northern Mali, Starlink knows that this thing has changed location entirely. So they know whose passport is attached to that account. They know whose face was scanned with that account. So the geolocation, you see, every Starlink terminal has inbuilt GPS. The dish knows exactly where it is on the surface of the earth. They know to the barest centimeter, they know where it is. So it communicates with a satellite constellation, right? So SpaceX themselves, that belongs to Elon Musk, they have the precise location of every active terminal at any given moment. So this is not speculation. This is how the Starlink system works. Now, this is where it gets uncomfortable for certain people that are not interested in what I am telling you right now. If Starlink is an American company, which it is, operating under American jurisdiction, with terminals that have GPS, unique hardware identifiers, payment trails, passport verification, and face scans, then the question becomes very simple. How is it possible that armed groups designated as terrorist organizations by multiple international bodies are using Starlink terminals to coordinate attacks, communicate across remote terrains, to plan operation, and Western intelligence agency either do not know or do know, but they just choose to do nothing about it? So is that complacency? Is that oversight? Is that negligence? Is that, you can't say that they don't know, but is that also complicity? Whichever one you think it is, all right, you can take that decision individually. Because let me be clear, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a situation where the lack of capability, is the cause. No. The National Security Agency of the United States, the GCHQ in the United Kingdom, the DGSE in France, these are, These are some of the most advanced intelligence agency on the planet. So they monitor satellite communications, as a matter of routine. They do it, right? The Five Eyes, they have the capability to track, intercept, and geolocate signals across the globe. So, the Five Eyes: the US, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, United Kingdom, and I think France and all of that. So, if they want to shut down the Starlink terminal that is being used by this terrorist group that work in the Sahel, right? Today, right now, I think they can do it. A terminal that have been registered by a known individual that is using a payment method tied to a bank account with a passport and a file with a face scan with GPS coordinates that is currently blinking the position, the operational position of that individual. You see, there is no anonymity here. There is no hiding. The only question is if they are aware and they are not making a move, and they claim to be, because America has the R2P, the right to protect. So anywhere there is terrorism, America has the right to move in and do whatever. That's what they say. So are they complicit? Because the last time they came to Mali through Rudi Atala, they said they have all the wherewithal to help Mali to track the leaders of this group. Are we saying that they know, but they're just quiet? So that's a big question, right? And this is where I think as Africans, we need to start asking very difficult questions. Because when Nigerian troops intercepted over 400 Starlink satellites used by Boko Haram and the Islamic State in West African province in the northeast, that was not Western intelligence providing the tip-off. That was Nigerian forces doing the work on the ground. They captured over 400 Starlink satellites. You see, certain people can be rich, but their money, is somehow. So the Human Rights Watch, that very Western organization, in April 2026, they made a report, right? Explicitly documenting that the JNIM and Al-Qaeda affiliates uses Starlink satellite internet signal to coordinate attacks, communicate in remote areas across Burkina Faso and Mali. So the information is documented, it is published, and it is in public domain. It is not me just saying this thing. Everything I'm saying here, they are verified facts. Now, and yet the terminals keep appearing, armed groups keep using them, operations continue, right? Now, I'm not going to stand here and make definitive claim that, okay, but what we are doing here is presenting you with facts, okay? So if a company knows the identity of its subscribers, which they know, and that company itself is subjected to the laws of the United States of America, and terminals registered to those subscribers are found in the hands of terrorists in active conflict zone. And these terrorists, sometimes they go to Libya when they are being chased from Mali. They go to Algeria. Sometimes they go to Mauritania and they cross back into Mali. And every time they cross these borders, they have to do some sort of facial scan, verification, because Starlink knows that these guys are on the move. And when you now have a pool of about 400 Starlink in the same geolocation, right, carrying out nefarious acts, and the command control centers of the Starlink, they are aware of what they are doing there. Is that complicity? That's just a question for you to answer again. So, in my opinion, right, these terminals that are being used to carry out terrorist operation, then at what point does silence, okay, stop being neutrality and start becoming something else? Because I feel it's definitely something else. Because here is the reality. The Malian armed forces and their Russian allies are doing the work. They are capturing the Starlink terminals on the field. They are the ones intercepting suspected terrorists in Sotrama vehicles in Kati. They are the ones putting boots on the ground in northern Mali. They are the ones taking casualties, because it's a tit for tat situation sometimes. But these guys have enough cojones to pay whatever price they have to just to make sure the Malian people can have peace. But the intelligence that could prevent these operations before they happen, that intelligence is sitting on some servers in California and in Virginia and also in London, and nobody is acting on it. So we should ask the question, is that complicity? So I leave you with this question, family. If Western intelligence agency have the capability to track every Starlink terminal on the planet, right, down to its GPS coordinates, when you say GPS coordinates, there is a plus and minus to it. It's not, in fact, it's not so far away. And when you look at how good the Starlink of Elon Musk is, they can track you to the very millimeter. And they have the subscriber's identity, they have the facial scan, the payment record, the passport details. And the faces, the faces that are being scanned, everyone operating on this terminal, they know. And yet, armed groups continue to use that Starlink freely across the Sahel to coordinate attacks against sovereign African states and their allies. What does that tell you? So, if you look at it very, very well, we can't call this silence anymore, because the silence at this point itself, it speaks volume. So what do you think about that level of volume? That the silence of America and their allies and France that continues to support the JNIM and the FLA. What do you think about the silence right now? Because their silence is speaking volume, and that volume is complicity. So, all right, for me, I think the Malians have done a phenomenal job to have been able to arrest those terrorists. And those terrorists, they will give us more lead. Like I said yesterday, for those that pay enough attention, that sometimes intelligence can be complete, sometimes intelligence can be incomplete. So they have captured 16. Capturing 16 does not mean the operation is over. That is why the Malian Armed Forces said the investigation continues. How many of them do you have? There are certain operations where you bring people together. I'm trying to explain some things right now. But everybody you are putting together, that conglomerate of, offensive animals, you cannot really, even the terrorists that are coming to carry out the attack as the foot soldiers, they don't even know what the mission is until probably the day of the mission, that they tell them, this is what you do. You are going to be in this place. You are going to do this. You are going to do that. You are going to be the suicide bomber. So they are going to do everything. Now, it is so terrible in some situation that the next soldier, the next terrorist standing to the next terrorist, they don't have a close synergy such that when they capture this guy has no knowledge about the guy that has been captured. So when you capture 16, it does not mean that you have a full intelligence to completely thwart a terrorist assault. But this is to show you that the Malian intelligence is up and running. To have been able to intercept this nefarious element, it means that they are doing their job the way they're supposed to do it, professionally. And a lot of credit to the Malian Armed Forces. This is what we were saying yesterday. We just gave credit to the Malian Armed Forces yesterday. And today, they have just been able to intercept these people. So don't let the Western media lie to you that African intelligence cannot do anything without Western assistance. Don't let the Western media, who projects the interests of the Western deep states, to manipulate the mindsets of Africans in how they look at themselves and how they look at their security architecture as being powerless, as entities that lack control. Don't let them shape, how you look at things. The Malian armed forces, the Malian intelligence, the Malian authority, they're putting in work. The Burkinabe armed forces, they're putting in work. The Nigerian armed forces, they're putting in work. And this is how the results manifest itself practically. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue to follow the lead. And as soon as we have credible intel, we'll bring it to you. So, family, it's at this point that I'm going to be building you farewell. I really appreciate your time. Uh, Very soon, we'll come back with another information because we're equally monitoring the situation independently and officially. So, thank you and God bless you.